All right, so in the wake of these ongoing protests that are happening over in Cuba, Biden has been facing a significant degree of pressure that is coming mainly from conservatives, but also from conservative Democrats within his own party to condemn socialism and communism, even though these protests that have been happening over in Cuba largely are protests for food shortages, medicine shortages, mismanagement by the government, as well as the embargo. There have been a huge mixed bag of protesters that have been going out, but none of them really, at least not a large amount of them, have been out protesting the socialist policies of Cuba, which have led to fantastic results. If you look at their healthcare system, their education system compared to where they were before the revolution, then they've hit all of the marks, you could say. So it's completely misrepresentative to say that these are massive protests against socialism in general. But yet this is what Joe Biden has to say in coming out and condemning socialism in general in regards to Cuba and Haiti. So let's go ahead and listen to what he said, and then we'll break down exactly what's wrong with this.
Well, let me start off by answering the question relative to Haiti and Cuba. And communism is a failed system, universally failed system. And I don't see socialism as a very useful substitute, but that's another story.
Okay, so short clip, but first of all, okay, I don't really know what he was referencing in Haiti because Haiti is not a socialist system. We have been meddling in their country for decades and decades and decades. We have installed right-wing dictators and stuff to exploit their resources. So not sure why he included Haiti and Cuba as if they have the same economic systems. They really just don't. But on top of that, I mean, listen, Cuba or communism is a failed system. Socialism is not a good substitute. Listen, man, I mean, this is what happens when you have an embargo on a country, a stranglehold on a country for 60 years or so since the revolution. I mean, we have had an embargo. We currently have over 200 sanctions, many of which were slapped down by the Trump administration and continuing by the Biden administration. Biden, his policy towards Cuba is even to the right of Obama, who is trying to actually normalize relations with Cuba, which would be a good thing. But here's Joe Biden, I mean, just coming out and condemning socialism as if that's the problem with what's happening in Cuba right now. The embargo over the years has cost Cuba an estimated $130 billion. So think about what that does to their economy. And as I covered in a previous video as well, the explicitly stated purpose of the embargo from the beginning, when the United States first started doing this after the revolution, the United States government openly said our explicit purpose in doing this embargo and putting these sanctions on the country is to starve the Cuban people, make them suffer as much as humanly possible, to facilitate the conditions necessary for an overthrow of the Cuban government. So that purpose exists now to this day, and it's continuing. But that was the explicitly stated purpose from the U.S. government going in from the beginning, and it's still what's happening right now. So when Biden comes out here and pretends as if this is all due to the failures of socialism and communism, no, it's just not. And listen, I mean, you want to talk about failures of an economic system? Well, as adequately pointed out here by Rob, capitalism is a failed system. It is subsidized by theft and murder and has completely collapsed for everyone outside of an increasingly privileged elite while bringing the planet to the brink of destruction. So absolutely right. Perfect synopsis here of our dying capitalist system as we see it in front of us. How is it dying? Well, let's go ahead and look at just some basic facts. So this was a recent article that came out July 14th, but this is something we've known for a long time, right? Full-time minimum wage workers can't afford rent anywhere in the United States, according to a new report. Anywhere in the United States, minimum wage. So Joe Biden obviously failed to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which in and of itself would be a starvation wage in most places around the United States, especially in cities where most people live, but, anywhere in the United States. So if you were working as a minimum wage worker, you literally are on a starvation wage. You can't afford to live anywhere in the United States. Does this seem like a system that is providing for its people? No, of course not. And of course we have a massive homelessness problem in this country as well, which if you go and look up what the Housing and Urban Development estimates it would cost to actually completely eradicate homelessness in the United States, it's only about $20 billion. So about, 3% of our yearly military budget, and yet we choose not to. Why? Because it's not necessarily profitable. So, again, the failures of our current economic system, capitalism. Another one, a UK warehouse, an Amazon warehouse, was caught destroying 130,000 unsold products a week. And this is not something that just takes place at Amazon, right? We can talk about iPads and iPhones and shit like that being thrown out. But at a much larger scale, I mean, we produce easily enough food around the world globally to feed every single person on Earth multiple times over, and yet we don't. Why? Because we are throwing out ridiculous amounts of food. Usually, when you account for the total amount of food that is wasted every single year that is thrown out by big grocery store chains, etc., because it's not profitable for them to keep all these products around or just to give them away to people. If you account for that, it's like half of the total waste that is thrown out by these big, grocery store chains and stuff at the end of the today is perfectly edible food that could be eaten by people. I mean, again, we have enough food globally to feed every single person, and yet we don't. Again, why? Because of our global capitalist system that deems it not profitable. So again, yet another failure. Here was another one that I covered in a different video. Supreme Court sides with Nestle and Cargill in case alleging child slavery. So yeah, another product of our exporting of capitalism, imperialism, if you want to call it that, economic imperialism at least. Supreme Court sides with Nestle and Cargill and alleged child slavery. So basically what this case was the Supreme Court said we cannot hold Nestle accountable for knowingly using child slaves because, you know, it happened over there in Africa, and, you know, they made these decisions over in a boardroom in America, so therefore we can't hold them responsible. So yet again, another product of our global capitalist system. Amazing, right? And yet another one. 78% of workers live paycheck to paycheck, and this was before the pandemic. This was back in 2019. 78% of workers are living paycheck to paycheck. Just one medical emergency, one accident like that could completely ruin their lives, bankrupt them, etc. So again, putting the majority of people in this country on the brink of the or the edge of collapse. Meanwhile, we have billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos amassing tens of billions of dollars in just a matter of days and weeks over the course of the pandemic. So this is the system that we have right now. This is the system that Joe Biden is in favor of over something like socialism. And this is where you really get the kicker. I mean, listen, Cuba life expectancy, 78.73. U.S. life expectancy, 78.54. So the United States, I mean, after all of that, all of the criticisms that you could level against the Cuban government, they are literally providing a situation that is better than here in the United States in terms of life expectancy, and that's with decades and decades and decades of embargoes and sanctions that have put a stranglehold on the country. So imagine what Cuba could be doing with their current economic system if they did not have that stranglehold on by the United States, by the largest, you know, economy in the world, the largest imperialist military force in the world. So listen, I mean, this is very obvious that our global capitalist system is collapsing right now. It's failing. I'm only 21 years old, and yet it is still massively imploded twice in my lifetime already. So listen, I mean, this is a failed system. Socialism, Biden, I don't even know that he could adequately even define what socialism or communism is, but this is him just feeding into the right. And the thing that I also found funny about this before I end this video is that, I mean, you go look at what Fox News is saying. They're already saying this is not good enough. So the point is, listen, even from a political angle, this isn't smart. Obviously, he's wrong on the economics of it. He's wrong on all of that. But I mean, in addition to that, this isn't even politically smart. I mean, he's doing this to appease conservatives who are saying Joe Biden is a socialist. But I mean, they're always going to say this, no matter what you say, man. You could come out and criticize communism and socialism every single day of the week, and they're still going to run ads on or run programs on Fox News claiming that you're a socialist because this is their game. Okay, anything to the right or to the left of a Ronald Reagan is deemed a socialist by these people. So there's no point in playing this game and feeding into this narrative that they're trying to put out there and trying to get you to play into. It's not going to work. They're never going to come to your side and pretend as if you are doing enough to criticize socialism in this way. So, you know, Fox News is already doing it. I mean, you can look at all the programs they've been running. Dems 3.5 trillion down payment on socialism, obviously talking about the infrastructure plan. Apparently investing in infrastructure is socialism. White House moves closer to socialism with expanded child tax credit. So Fox News anchors are out here extremely pissed off and angry that babies might not starve and babies might actually have something that can provide the adequate material resources necessary to raise a child. So, you know, this is where the right is at right now, and this is where Joe Biden is at, apparently agreeing with them and feeding into these same bullshit narratives. So again, socialism is obviously not just a completely globally failed system, especially when you take into consideration that the United States can't keep its hands off in trying to invade, overthrow the governments, overthrow democracies, install dictators, fund far-right death squads, and every single country that tries to nationalize resources or move towards a more democratic socialist system. So these are the things you have to take into context. And again, Biden revealing his hand, he is still the same vicious capitalist that he has always been.